Hey, YouTube. So R. Kelly has then lost a civil suit filed by one of these girls that he molested when she was underage. I think she was 16 years old. He lost the case because he didn't show up for court. So this happened a few days ago. The story is 3 or 4 days old. But I want to talk a little bit about this thing about him not being able to read. So his excuse is he's not able to read, so that's why he didn't come to court, which, I mean, it would only require reading the dates. I'm sure R. Kelly, he makes his living as a writer. His primary thing is a writer and performer, right? So, just like with his music, he's figured out. He's figured out, how can I be a songwriter if I can't read? And he figured out ways to do it, probably using various machines and things. So I'm talking about dyslexia. I'm dyslexic myself. I was not diagnosed with that, but let me see. I think I was about 15 years old, and I was smart in school. I was smart in school, except for anything that involved homework. I never went to the library. I never read any assignments, but I could still do well, seemingly, in high school, just with verbal. So I understand dyslexia, and people have different degrees of dyslexia. I can read, but they were going to put me in some kind of a special reading class. I forget what the name of the class was, but I didn't understand it because I said, "Well, hell, I'm smarter than all these guys. I'm still getting A's and B's in class. How's it that I'm doing so bad with reading and mathematics?" So it's dyslexia. This was back in the early 70s. I was not diagnosed with that. It took me years to understand what it was even. But and I could read. I mean, I can read. It just takes me a little more time. But it's not something I get pleasure out of, right? So I went on with my life. There was not many instances where I had to do a lot of reading. None of the jobs that I did, they were always physical labor type things. None of them required reading. So I was watching Oprah back about 1980 or something, 80, 81, and Oprah had somebody on there, and they were talking about dyslexia. And that person described exactly what I went through in high school. I said, oh, that's what it is. I can't concentrate on the page. My eyes drift, and it's very hard for me to concentrate on the page, right? So I self-diagnosed myself. I said, because whoever this person was, they described exactly what I experienced as far as reading, how I never read books. My life went on, and then in about 1991, I wound up in prison, right? Now, there's not a lot to do in prison, particularly if you're not the athletic types who want to go out there lifting weights and all that kind of things. Not a lot of things to do. They have televisions there, but you share them with, I don't know, 20 hardened criminals. It's hard to get what you want. So I didn't do that very much. So I started going to the library. And what I realized was, I can read fine. If I'm not rushed to take a test or anything, I mean, if I don't have to read out loud or anything like that, just personally, I could read just fine. I'm sure it took me a lot longer than most people, and I'm sure I went over several pages. But I read a lot of books when I was in prison. I mean, there's not a lot of other options. So that made me feel kind of good and kind of understand myself a little better, right? And I went on. I got out of prison. I had this overwhelming desire to write. Now, how in the hell? Because before prison, I had never read a book from cover to cover in my entire life. Not academic book, not Stephen King, nothing. I had never read a book from cover to cover, right? So I realized that I could enjoy reading. I got into it in prison. When I got out, I wanted to write. Spirit told me, something told me. One day I just wanted to get up, and I hadn't even thought about it before. And I wanted to write down my story. That's my first book, Meth Monster, right? And what I had discovered was there are ways to get around reading. There are ways to get around reading. And I wrote 5 books. I wrote for 12 years. Every other year I was releasing a book, right? And there was no indication in this that this person did not read well, or this person had a disability, or anything like that. It didn't come out because I figured it out. Okay, so I'm talking about R. Kelly. he prompted the story, but I'm talking about dyslexia. What I learned to do, and I'm sure R. Kelly has learned to do, is figure it out. How can I make my brain work with reading and writing. So for me, when I was writing my book, I would type out a page, pick it out, right? Didn't seem to take that long because I wasn't in a rush. I could do whatever I wanted to do, take as long as I wanted to do, right? So I picked my pages, and then I would copy them onto a reader on my computer. I'm talking about typing on the page, copy them, and then had the machine read them back to me, right? So when the machine read my work back to me, I could hear it just like a person was talking, right? Then I write a little more, then I copy it, and I paste it in there. And then I would read all that I've written. Is it still consistent? Is it still a consistent story? And I said, well, this is fun. I mean, I actually figured out a way that I could write. I can get my thoughts down. It could be clearly. I communicate a lot better on page, as a matter of fact, than I do talking. Because when you're writing a book, so you get the opportunity to go over what you wrote. You go over it and over and over it, as long as it takes, right, to get it to sound just like you want it to make it sound. So it's easier for me to communicate that way. Anyway, I said all that to say, R. Kelly, I think when you get to court, I can't read, it's not going to work. Of course, we all know you had lawyers and all that kind of stuff. Anybody can read something to you. But he said they served him while he was in jail. So, I mean, the excuse is weak. You could have had anybody. I'm sure he probably was more overwhelmed because he had all this serious legal criminal cases pending, and he was sitting in jail, and he was trying to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay his back child support, and then all of a sudden he's served with other papers. So he just pushed it to the side, said, fuck it. I'm overwhelmed, particularly when I'm sitting in a jail cell next to the toilet. Well, R. Kelly, now you got yourself in a situation. So his lawyers are trying to plead now that they shouldn't have served him while he was in jail, and that he could not read the documents. He didn't know what they meant. All he'd have to read is the date to show up, basically. But anyway, that's why they're spending it. I'm sure R. Kelly says, well, you got to pay lawyers to do this, pay lawyers to do that. Now, what's this little thing? Not a little thing when they get that judgment. I don't know what the amount is. I don't think the amount has been determined yet. But it's a damn shame to lose based on you didn't show up for court. So, yeah, you're not going to be able to use that, R. Kelly. You have all these big cases coming up. I think you better concentrate on how you're going to deal with legal papers and documents. So just like I was telling you about how I use my reader on my computer, there's all kind of ways to read things. All he has to do is have him send it in the mail. You can send me the hard copy, but send me a copy in the mail. Copy in the mail, paste it into a reader that you can get for a few dollars on your computer. If it's not already on there, I'm sure he has the best equipment. And have the machine read it to you. It's very simple. And I know R. Kelly has to be aware of this because he wrote music. My idea is he probably wrote music. He probably recorded what he wrote, and it played back to him, and he added to it. It's similar to what I was doing when I was writing. So you can figure it out when you have to. So I think R. Kelly is just going to have to realize that he's not going to be able to use this I can't read thing, and figure out how he's going to move forward. His life is about winning cases now, trying to stay out of prison at least for the rest of his life. Right? But dyslexia is a real thing. And it does not mean you're dumb. It does not mean you're stupid. It means you learn differently. That's a lot of documents I get. They say, how do you learn best? Audio. I get a lot of medical. I've had all kind of medical stuff. I get a lot of medical documents and things like that. And many times I push them to the side. I don't want to read all this stuff, you know. But even my hospital, they have it where you can go online. Whatever you want to read, you read it with all the technology that's available to you. So you can get through it, people. If you're hard dyslexia, sometimes people ask me, "You're so smart when you were young. Why didn't you go to college?" college was never an option for me because I had this thing. I don't know whether it was a secret or not. I just didn't understand it. But I know that I never studied. I managed to get decent grades because of the verbal part of the class. I mean, some things I would guess at, or somehow way I would figure it out. But I never cracked books, and now I understand why. So understanding why helps you to move forward. I mean, many people are going to say, in the case of R. Kelly, they're going to say, man, you got all that money, all that access to everything. Instead of all this damn sex, fucking, why don't you spend some time and figure out and learn how to read? And maybe you could. I'm not here to judge that. Maybe you could, maybe you can't. Maybe his disability is so extreme that he can't grasp it. But somehow or other, he's been able to write all this music. So he can figure it out if he wants to. Anyway, that's my take on dyslexia. And as far as R. Kelly, I'm sure he probably thought, man, I got so much serious business here. You're sitting in the jail cell and they're talking about putting you away for 70 years. And you got to raise this money at the same time you're in jail. I'm sure this thing didn't seem to be very important at the time. Well, all court dates are important. Now, if this judge is merciful, perhaps he'll give him another run at showing up for court. That's what they're trying to do now. They're asking the court to halt this judgment by default and let him speak his case. Not that it doesn't mean he's going to win the case. It just means he'll get another chance to show up. We'll see. I mean, I'm kind of burnt on the R. Kelly story. Kind of want to see what happens now. But it's not ending well for him. You know, we know that. And I'm sure it's costing him everything he has. But I'll keep you posted best I can. All right, happy Monday, people. Now, you haters, now, see, I gave you a little bit more information. Haters, don't try to, now they're going to kind of come from my reading abilities. That's how they are. Every time you say anything about yourself on YouTube, they use it against you. So go to hell. I don't care, or I wouldn't have said it.